what it mean to be the best. Riding foes, feeling unimpressed, make me reminisce. Throwing bows, been in the corner, set my mind up on the goal. All I know is stay down, bad, I'm the goal. Okay, feel like the best, the great. Now there ain't no debate. Yeah. Okay, feel like the best, the great. Now there ain't no debate. Yeah. I ain't gotta say much. Know the boy got a touch. Another win for the rush. Another win for the rush. See me once and got a crush. See you twice and that's enough. Get the ring size.
Welcome in. Tell the Truth, episode 63. It is time for the Super Bowl 59 preview. Your Kansas City Chiefs will be taking on the Philadelphia Eagles down in New Orleans, the site of the Chiefs' first Super Bowl win all the way back in Super Bowl IV over the Minnesota Vikings. Here we go. Sunday, the Chiefs have a chance to accomplish something that's never been accomplished. Even get into the Super Bowl certainly is history as the only team to win back-to-back Super Bowls and get to the third. Now they have the opportunity to be the first team to three-peat officially in the Super Bowl era. CJDG, how you guys feeling, man?
Back, baby. Third straight year, back. Excited. A little nervous, but at the same time, confident and ready to see what they can do. Can they make history, man? Can they reach the mountaintop again for a third straight time?
Hey, man, Bean said it best, man. Job's not finished.
Yeah,
Job's not finished, bro. We got one more, bro.
Up 2-0 right now.
We got one more, bro. And you could tell, like, when I watched the media day last night, I ain't see no smirks. I ain't see too much smiling. Boys locked in, man. Like, this is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, like DG just said. You don't let this go through your fingers, bro.
Nah,
I think these boys go out there. I think they go out there and make history, for real. It's too much on the line, bro. You can see it in their eyes, bro. They ready for the moment. They built for it.
And this is a team that is fully healthy going into this moment as they have headed down to New Orleans to start to get ready. Their final preparations, obviously, they went through the heavy lifting of the game plan last week, being able to make sure everything is properly inserted so that they're ready to get going, hit the ground running. They had Super Bowl media night last night, which honestly didn't see anything really interesting come out of. Like, usually you get one or two random quotes or something weird happens. I don't think anything too crazy happened. We got some funny Jameis Winston moments. Shout out to Jameis Winston throwing W's all over the place. But other than that, I think it was a pretty normal, Super Bowl media day outside of some idiotic questions that, unfortunately the Chiefs have had to answer a few too many times to say the least. But yeah, I mean, they're down there. They're getting ready for it. It's going to be a little bit of media circus tomorrow. We're going to get the assistant coaches, I believe. And, it's going to be interesting. So obviously we like to kind of look at it from the football standpoint, more so than anything else, the storylines, et cetera, everything else. But, I mean, you talked about, nervous but confident. But overall, as before we start breaking down the matchups and stuff, how do you guys feel about this big picture Super Bowl going into it? Obviously, the Eagles are an extremely strong team. Obviously, we've seen our team handle business in a multitude of ways, and the ways that the games have asked them, whether it's lower scoring or higher scoring, obviously scoring over 30 points for the first time all season last game. How do you guys feel about the big picture aspect of this going to the Super Bowl?
I mean, I think overall, you pretty much know the matchup, what you have to do. There's not really too much from a game planning standpoint. The teams really can show each other. They've seen each other at the highest moments. Obviously, there's a big domino effect adding a guy like Saquon Barkley, but from a game planning standpoint, Philly's traditional, their identity is the same. They want to run the football. They want to be a dominant football team up front. They want to win time of possession, kill the clock, keep your offense up the field, and then they want to let their pass rush eat. So from a quarterback standpoint, Jalen Hurts has done a lot of things well to not lose them games, but from a passing standpoint, in my personal opinion, I think he's regressed since we saw him 2 years ago. Obviously, the run game is better when you add Saquon, but from a passing game standpoint, I don't know if he's the same player he was. Not to say he can't beat you and make plays. Obviously, he can get him to this point, but from where he was 2 years ago, and I don't think he got the contract following the Super Bowl performance well deserved, I thought he would be at a different point coming into this game. So coming into the matchup, I think Spags has obviously seen every quarterback you could think of, like me and GG were talking off air. When you play guys like Lamar, obviously Josh Allen, you've seen the Joe Burrows, we've seen the Brady's. Like, there's not a quarterback that Spags hasn't seen. So in the biggest moments on top of that. So coming into this game, big picture-wise, I think obviously him and Coach Merritt and Coach Cullen are going to have the boys ready to go and locked in. So there's really not much that needs to be said, honestly. You kind of know what you need to do from an X's and O standpoint. At this point, it's about just going out to execute. Both these teams are here for a reason. Both these teams are legit. They can do things on both sides of the ball. It just comes down to the three things you hear in every game: turnover margin, red zone, and third down. That's the only big things always going to win or lose you a football game. So,
Yeah, I've been saying it all year. The one thing I think the Chiefs really do well is the little small minor details that go into games. The small things that help you win games, or or in avoiding the small things that help you lose games. Um, and they've just been better in those moments. I think they've been probably this year the best situational football team in the league. And I know a lot of people. This Eagles roster is very stout, and they got a lot of playmakers on both sides of the ball. Jalen Carter to Quinyon Mitchell to Cooper DeJean to Charlie Goddard Johnson, to the offensive side of Devontae Smith and AJ Brown and Jalen Hurts and Saquon Barkley, and in the offensive line as well too. Yeah, man, the Chiefs at this point, I think this is their toughest test, and I think they know that coming into this. This is there's one more, one more left to go, one more left to get. The job's not done yet. You haven't gotten there yet, and I think they realize that and they know that, and I think they come in with that mindset that 50 minutes away of great football, of reaching a place that no team has ever been before. I think they're keeping that in their minds, and I think last night just kind of told me that they're fully locked in and ready to go, and they're excited for this moment or whatever. And I think they go out there and they execute on Sunday.
I think these boys are certainly locked into the historic moment, but even more so, for those that this is the first time, being here and having this opportunity. Guys like DeAndre Hopkins, guys like Kareem Hunt, even a guy like was on the team last year, but this is going to be the time to be a contributor, and Charles Omenihu. So I'm excited to see what those guys can do on this stage as well, and you can tell how much it really means to those guys. We saw it in Charles Omenihu in the latest episode of the franchise, how excited he was on the sideline that he was finally going to get to play on this stage. I think that's going to apply for a few of these guys. Hollywood Brown for sure. And for that reason, it's a little bit different of the teams of Chiefs past that have been able to win the championship, even though that they have, the support of those that have moved on. This is a unique opportunity for this team to go ahead and stamp itself as far as history is concerned. And I'm excited. It seems like they're locked in, and they want to put themselves in the history books, man, once and for all. So this is a great opportunity. Certainly going to be a great game. And we can kind of talk about each of these matchups and break it down to a fine powder. I wanted to start kind of with the Chiefs' defensive side of this, only from the standpoint of I think that the Eagles' offense feels like it provides a unique challenge. Obviously, Jalen Hurts' legs, the excellence of Saquon Barkley, the incredible offensive line that is obviously a part of the Philadelphia Eagles, and, of course, their weapon set from wide receiver to tight end that's very good as well. But it starts when it comes to the Eagles as far as their run game is concerned. Saquon Barkley had an historic season and now in position to possibly have the most rushing yards in postseason and regular season combined. We've seen what he's done to the Washington Commanders and Los Angeles Rams and other bad run defenses throughout the entirety of this season to this point. How do you guys feel like this team, specifically as far as the Chiefs defense, matches up? Obviously, a lot better defending the run throughout the regular season, a better ability to tackle on a consistent basis as well, and generally does kind of limit those explosive runs that we've seen Saquon Barkley call house calls on a consistent basis throughout these playoffs. So, CJ, if you want to start us off, and then we'll go to DG. How do you feel about that matchup between the Chiefs defense and this Eagles run game led by Saquon Barkley, and obviously augmented, by Jalen Hurts' legs as well?
Yeah, I mean, it's a night and day matchup from what we saw 2 years ago. No disrespect to guys like Miles Sanders and obviously Kenneth Gainwell, who's still on the roster, but Saquon Barkley's been considered the best running back in football since he stepped in the league from Penn State. Obviously, there's been a lot of other good backs in the league, like the Derrick Henrys and the Christian McCaffreys of the world. And me and DG talked about it off camera. We've kind of seen those guys, and obviously Saquon is the guy in his own lane. Like he's kind of in that Christian McCaffrey type, a guy that can catch the ball, run the ball. He can run it in between the tackles, outside, anywhere you want him to go, hit it and make a play, he can do. So, and he's having an amazing year, and credit to him. But from a big game standpoint, we talked about it off air. In these biggest moments, Spags shows up. Obviously, he's going to watch every game clip. There's obviously a lot of games where Saquon played well. There's some games where he didn't play well also. So there's a lot of things you can do up front to kind of scheme it up and kind of force them to put the ball in Jalen's hands more. I think we see a lot of underfronts. I think this is a big Leo Chenal game. If there was like an X factor this week, he's my guy for sure. He's going to play a lot of snaps, and I expect to see him play on the line of scrimmage, off ball, setting the edge. And I think we've done a great job of that all year, given the fact we have the best run defense coming into the game. So we've done a great job of neutralizing running backs. And to me and DG said earlier, there's no stopping Saquon. He's going to make his plays. He's going to have his hits, and he's going to make a play here and there. You just don't want to have the home run plays. You don't want to have the 30, 40, 50-yard, 60-yard runs he's been doing the last 2-3 weeks, the backbreakers per se. So you don't want to see him hit his head on the goalpost too many times. And he's going to make a play. Like, they're going to get in the red zone. They're either going to tush, push, or run it in with Saquon. He's a good back. And to like DMac's point, they have a great O-line. But the thing you have to do to supplement that, I think, is putting 5 men down, even going some bare fronts if you have to. And in my opinion, kind of like we said last year going into the Niners game, force Jalen Hurts to throw the ball 30-plus times. If that's the formula they do that, I think that's an advantage for us, because I'd rather the ball be in his hands for a whole game than obviously Saquon. Because if Saquon can keep hitting you with those 20 and 15-yard runs, then they turn into those 30, 40 yards where they're obviously killing the clock, and then you're burning your defense and he's scoring touchdowns. So it's going to be a big game. It's going to be a huge game for guys like Nick Bolton and Drew Tranquil. They got to keep their eyes on their luggage. It's going to be a big test for them, and obviously guys up front are going to have to eat up a lot of blocks. This game has Mike Pennell written all over it for me. Same thing we said last year when he dominated versus Trent Williams. And that was the kind of you would think if you asked a Niners fan, that was the advantage for them. And Mike Pennell just came out and dominated that game from the jump. So usually in these biggest moments, we know he hasn't really, but this is his first time being with the team for the whole season, because usually we add him after October, after the trade deadline, and we kind of bring him in late. So this is his first time being with us for a whole 17 and the playoff run. And he's played big minutes for us all year. So I think this is a game where he puts his thumb and imprint stamp on this game, because if we can dominate up front, and I know the Eagles have a little injury at center guard combo right now. I know some guys are going to play through it regardless. It's the biggest game. But if you try to take advantage of weakness, I think that's where it is. Obviously, if you blow up and kind of make guys have to win their blocks and not let them beat you across the face with their helmets, and make Saquon have to break a tackle before he gets to the line of scrimmage, that's the biggest thing with him. He gets to the second, third level without even being touched sometimes. When he does things like that, he's a special player. You get him in the open field, he's going to make a lot of people miss and look stupid. So, yeah, definitely Mike Pennell and Leo Chenal are my two X factors. Beating your block, stalling your guys out, letting your linebackers do cleanup is going to be really huge for us this week.
Yeah, to me, the first part of this game is going to be about gap assignment and gap discipline. I think the Chiefs have done a really good job of doing that this year, of knowing where they need to be. Guys like Mike Pennell, Derek Nandi, Turk Wharton, those guys this week are going to have their work cut out for them. It starts with them. They're almost essentially like the offensive line for Nick Bolton, for Leo Chenal, for Drew Tranquil as well, to play downhill. I think if they can have a good game in that interior up front and allow Nick Bolton and those guys to flow down and crash down and play like how they play or whatever, and be able to get some of those runs, keeping some of those runs to 2 yards, or even TFLs or whatever. Those would be huge for them.
Get them in third and long. That's what we want, third and long.
Yeah. Yeah, you got to eliminate huge explosive plays. Setting the edge is definitely going to be important. Saquon's definitely a back that likes to, if the hole's not there, he'll bounce it to the outside. And he's got the ability to bounce it and get up the field and get going quickly. So edges have to be very disciplined and set the edge. This is a game, like I continue to always say, like last week, this is a game for you not to be a hero. It's a game for you to do your job. Make sure, you stick to what your assignment is, and set the edges as best as possible as you can. I don't expect them to completely, totally take Saquon out the game. He's too good of a back for that. But if you can contain him and force this game to, like CJ said, in my opinion, to get into Jalen Hurts' hands, I think you have better opportunities and chances to come out victorious with this.
Yeah, look, and shout out to Kim Cass asking about how big Leo is this week.
He's huge this week.
He's massive, and it's going to be very interesting to me to see how often they choose, and I mean they in the Eagles' case, they choose to put multiple tight ends out there because, again, that invites the best of the Chiefs' run defense. And I think you saw some portions of that last week when the Bills, I should say, tried to get some of those heavy personnel sets where there's 2 tight ends or 6 offensive linemen. They didn't have great success with it. And that's because it invited those 3 linebackers to come on the field, and that's when we defend the run the best. Their best lineups, their most normal lineups, involve 3 wide receivers instead, and so that's going to be a little bit of a different look than what the Bills certainly are going to present as well from that perspective. But I did want to share and just kind of look through the Eagles' explosive runs from out this playoffs, and there's about 8 of them here. And this one's going to start here. This is going to be another example of the kind of 12 personnel set. And the Eagles are going to match with 3 linebackers ultimately. And, Gary initially kind of does a solid job trying to stay outside, making sure that Hurts doesn't, get that edge. But that opens up the hole for Saquon. And this is just about Saquon making 2 guys miss, their tackles and being able to create that explosive run. And you're going to see a theme really throughout all of these. Some of these guys are going to have the opportunity to bring down Saquon. And last week, you saw the really big run that James Cook was able to have with the Najee Johnson missed tackle. But if you're not able to tackle, then none of this is going to matter because you can play the gaps, exceptionally well. You can have everything hemmed up. And even here, they force a multiple time cutback, from Saquon Barkley in this case. But ultimately, none of it's going to matter if you get here and you're just not able to make the tackle. So, and again, you're going to see this throughout. Saquon Barkley able to make guys miss. You have to get them on the ground. And to CJ's initial point, a much different challenge than it was when we shut down Miles Sanders and Kenneth Gainwell and last year, or I should say in the Super Bowl 57 2 years ago. But it's a lot different when it's Saquon Barkley that has the level of acceleration around the edge that he certainly does as well. And you see him put to good use in these things where he kind of outruns those angles. Guys doing a good job of pursuing, but not well enough to cut off where Saquon can kind of get outside. Another key piece of this, the 2 guys here pulling, Landon Dickerson and Cam Jurgens, those are the guys that, we've seen get banged up in the NFC Championship game going into it, and then obviously through it. So we'll see how well those guys are able to play. But again, the pursuit angle from the second level here, just unexcusable by Xavier McKinney. You got to be able to cut that off. You can't go all the way inside and get caught like that. So the Chiefs have done a good job on a consistent basis at being able to string those outside runs out and then eventually finish through the sideline and make sure that there's no opportunities for the running backs to really get around the edge. And again, save for a few times here or there. They have to continue playing at extremely high level from that aspect as well.
And also, DMac, before you continue, I was looking up some personnel tendencies. The Chiefs are top 3 in the league, top 4 for the entire 2024 season in 12 personnel. The Eagles are number 24. So obviously, to your point, they prefer to be in 11 and 10 when they have A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith on the field, Dallas Goedert, and obviously Josh Dotson, Dwayne Dotson when they added later in the season. So I think if we can stop them in those early downs, to your point, when they go spread and force them to use some of their 12 personnel, that's a set they don't like to be in because they're not as explosive.
Yeah, absolutely. And
this is the one that McKinney had a terrible day.
He overran this one so bad.
Yeah, he was bad in this game.
He see him coming and still jumped out the way.
Nothing to be done there. And that was at the end of the game.
That's an icer, yeah. That was an icer.
We're going to show here. This is early on in the Rams game. As you can tell that there wasn't a whole bunch of snow on the field by this point. But this is a 3rd and 4. They're going to go to 11 personnel, and the 8 Rams are going to match again with 1 linebacker out there and kind of get into a light personnel set as far as their defensive personnel is concerned. And the Eagles are going to take advantage of those looks all the time because it's 3rd and 4. they have no problem running it and then, going for it again, which they did versus us in the Super Bowl. But that just invites them to have the ability to. And you can tell, I mean, the Rams just get blown off the ball here. It's not even close. And they're a little bit light as far as their front is concerned. But certainly when you put extra, small bodies out there, the Eagles are happily going to take advantage of it. And then Saquon is going to finish it from that standpoint if you give him the opportunity to as well. And that's all that really is about. I'm never going to show you the reverse angle. It's just as bad from that standpoint too. So, again, you have to be able to be stout versus the run up front. And to your point, a big Mike Pennell game, I think that it's important that this defensive line specifically is going to be facing this team because we have the size and mass really from that standpoint, whether it's Nadi, whether it's Tershawn Wharton, Mike Pennell obviously is part of it. Chris Jones is a part of it. Charles Omenihu and George Karlaftis on the edges are a part of it. Mike Dan is a part of it. You need to have the ability to have multiple bodies along the defensive side of the ball to stay fresh and be able to combat what is a really good Eagles offensive line as well.
The biggest thing on this play, I think, is obviously I think that's verse on the end. You obviously have to set the edge, and they saw the tendency. They shifted the line to the right, the defense is right, so they knew what was coming. It's just obviously when the ball is snapped, linebackers filled the wrong hole, and Saquon just does an amazing job of letting the play develop and cutting back and doing his jump cut in the snow is super impressive. And Verse tried to guess and just ran himself out of the play. You gotta stay. What DG said, do your job. Verse definitely
don't be a hero because stay on right here. 56 has this gap filled up.
Exactly.
56 is going exactly where
he's going to come right to you. Verse, if you'd have stayed there, he would have came right to you.
All Verse has to do is stay exactly where
he
is.
He
would have cut back right to you.
Do your
can't
job.
be a hero, man. You cannot.
This
is not the time and place to try to guess and try to make an impactful play. Just
not with this kind
job.
of guy. Not him.
Do your job.
Do your job and tackle when you have the chance to.
Stay there.
Let them make the mistake and get frustrated and start to not see holes to play develop. Don't give them an easy out.
Yeah.
This is the first play from the scrimmage for the Eagles.
This was just terrible tackling. Jesus Christ. They had 5 guys to the ball and nobody decided to get their arms around him.
And it's Bobby Wagner a little bit slow to get out there. Lufu's behind the play. And I mean, just
1, 2,
it's just
3,
terrible
tackling. Jeremy Chin, make the tackle, son. You're there. Make the play. That's like a 15-yard gain, maybe 16-yard gain. Instead, it turns into a 60-yard tutty.
Well, even the pursuit on this play is
Luvu. The effort was poor on his angle. Obviously, Bobby Wagner got banged up trying to disengage from his block right here. But this is inexcusable from Chin. Bro, make the play. You're right there, bro. You had 3 chances to tackle him.
Gotta bring him down to the ground, man. He's too explosive.
This kid's good.
Not too. Yeah. That's what I said, man. To me, I've been saying it for a while, and I know people like CMC. He's Saquon's best running back in the league, in my opinion.
Yeah, and I said it. I said the second that he stepped in the league, he was the most talented running back in the National Football League.
I said the same thing too. I love
full package
too, but
point blank period. And
his
other guys have been
just different, bro.
Yeah, other guys have been able to produce more, but Derrick Henry doesn't have the agility that Saquon Barkley does. He can't catch as well as Saquon Barkley does. CMC doesn't have the power in between the tackles that Saquon Barkley does. He has everything that you could possibly look for in a running back. He was built in a lab to play in the NFL at running back. It's just the truth of it. And so that means that you got to be disciplined throughout the entirety of the play to fill up the gaps, and then you have to finish with sound tackling. And if you don't, then he's just going to get massive yards off of you.
And the point I made earlier when I said Mike Pennell and Leo Chenal, because the biggest thing we care about those two is obviously they do their job like DG's point, but they blow up pulling guards and pulling tackles. And the Eagles love to do that like they did right here. When they have blocking down, pinning and pulling. If Luvo does a great job of hitting the initial surge, but who's the second man to follow? Nobody's there. So Saquon, you blow up the first block, great job, Luvo, but somebody has to be there to follow him to blow up the second block to make Bobby has to be there. Bobby too slow.
96 gets blown off from Lane.
Somebody
Johnson
has to be there.
Bobby getting blown off the ball.
And like I said earlier, half of these plays, Saquon don't get touched till the second level.
Look at Bobby at the bottom of the screen.
Bro, he's not even on the right side of the ball when that plays.
It's an alignment thing too. The running back.
Bobby, why are you lined up over the tackle? Bro, scoot over.
The running back is lined up here.
That's what I'm saying. If he's gonna run, he's gonna run it to your left. Exactly. Like, why are you lined up over there?
So yeah,
like DG said, you got to get lined up first, and that's why I'm so glad Nick Bolton is playing, because he was huge, obviously, with the turnover in the first game. But to DG's point, he's the quarterback of the defense. He gets us all lined up and gets everybody ready to go.
I mean, this reminds me of watching the Chargers versus the Houston Texans when we were going through that end, just being like, wow,
end of the game. Yep.
There's a whole bunch of mistakes pre and post snap that are just inexcusable that you can't have. That's how it was on the offensive end, but this is on the defensive end.
If you're not even lined up, you don't even have a chance, bro.
No.
Pre-snap alignment and assignment are the two biggest things.
Mm-hmm. You got to stay disciplined, and you got to make sure that you're starting in the right place, because if you're not, then the Eagles going to be. But I'm glad that you mentioned specifically being able to blow up those pulling guards, pulling tackles, because I mean, it's one thing. Obviously, here they just kind of get beat by the zone. 20 is beat by having his eyes here, watching too much.
Where's Bobby Wagner going? Where are you going?
There's no indication that you should be pulling this way. Literally, what indication? No lineman pulls. It's just Devontae Smith going in motion. And if they give it to him, fine. You got a DN and you got a corner right there to rally and tackle.
Exactly.
False stepping all night, which is surprising from a guy like him, because he's been all-world, Hall of Fame level linebacker the last decades.
Yeah, but when you're older,
out of anybody to make the mistakes, for him to do that is very shocking. Very shocking.
But when you are older, you do try to
overthink things.
Yeah. And so, I mean, those were just the explosive plays. Obviously, they had other runs that were very good. But the reality of the situation is, you have to be disciplined before the snap and then post snap, and you have to tackle. It's got to be all three of those elements. I think you have the ability to, you have the talent to on this defense to limit them from that standpoint, but you cannot allow them to have those type of knockout punches. You got to make it difficult for them to run the ball, and then also put it more so on Jalen Hurts' shoulders. And along those specific lines, obviously, it comes down to if you are able to put it on Jalen Hurts' shoulders in a similar way that you did in 2022. And Jalen Hurts had himself a spectacular game. I don't think we've seen a game from him to that level since then. Now you have that's
exactly what I said.
The added challenge of A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, Saquon Barkley, and Dallas Goedert in the passing game, and what each of those four present. All that being said, this is a quarterback that still has not been able to perform when put under pressure. He still struggles from that perspective. When pressure is put on him, he still can make some of those mistakes. He also is not the most comfortable quarterback as far as throwing out the middle field is concerned as well. He still wants to get outside the numbers, on the more often than not from that aspect. So the major point of this, he did not face a whole lot of unblocked pressures really throughout the entirety of this postseason, but specifically in that NFC Championship game. We know Steve Spagnuolo can create some of those with the blitz. He's still good versus the blitz, given all of the different aspects that this team can attack with, specifically because the outside talent is so good. Do you guys believe that this is a team that can get unblocked pressures that can get those and create those pressures without necessarily sending extra guys? And B, if they have to send extra guys, how great do you feel like they're going to be able to hold up in coverage, given how good these weapons are?
You have to mix it up, obviously. Yeah, you got to mix it up. Like you said, I agree with the point. I think I looked at a lot of the completion charts for Jalen Hurts. Most of his completions are outside of numbers. Coming into a clear picture for him, he knows where to throw the ball. Oh, I have a one-on-one matchup with Smitty. I have a one-on-one matchup with A.J. Brown. I'm throwing that every time. Or I have a safety lined up with Goddard. I'm going to take advantage of that matchup. But when you try to muddy up the picture, force him to make tight window throws, I think that's when he can make mistakes. And he did that a lot last year. Now this year, to DMac's point, he's been more prone to just hold on to the ball. It's not like he obviously didn't want to turn the ball over, throw a lot of picks, but he also doesn't want to make that big throw either at times as well. And I think that could be your detriment when you're playing a guy like Spags, because it's one thing to not turn the ball over. If you don't decide to make that throw, that could turn into what, DG? A sack, strip sack, third down, second down, get you in those third and longs, which is where I think we're most comfortable in, because we can obviously mix in and start doing our blitz packages, and Spags could heat it up. But I think that's where Jalen Hurts does not want to be. Kellen Moore and that offense want to stay on track, stay on target. They want to stay on track and be in 2nd and 4, be in 3rd and 2, where they can do their zone reads, their quarterback run game, their tush pushes. That's when they're at their best. When they're in 3rd and 8 and 3rd and 10, they don't convert at a high rate. For the first half of the year, I think Eagles didn't have an opening drive where they scored a touchdown until I think that Pittsburgh game was the first game they did do it. And I referenced that game before we got on air to DMac. That was one of Saquon's worst games. Now, obviously, Steelers didn't combat that with a good offensive performance, but from a defensive standpoint, they did things flawlessly, which is what I wanted to see. Hopefully, we see this week, which is a lot of underfronts, 5 men down, forcing to Kellen Moore in the offense to have to put the ball in Jalen Hurts' hands more. So, obviously, from a defensive standpoint, you have to mix it up. Obviously, you don't want to give the quarterback the same look the entire game. Eventually, they'll figure you out, but you have to play some man, play some zone. A.J. Brown's going to make his plays. Smitty's going to make his plays. They're great players, but I'm betting more oftentimes than not, if you put the ball more in Jalen Hurts' hand than Saquon Barkley, that gives you a better chance to win the game overall.
Yeah, I think it's both. Man. You obviously be able to contain them from getting outside the numbers and definitely making him throw across the middle of the field. This front four for the last couple weeks has proven to you these last couple of weeks that they can get to the quarterback without having to send extra pressure. The emergence of Charles Omenihu coming back, I think, has really helped his defensive line be able to do that. We obviously seen George Karlaftis play a lot better, especially down the stretch here for over the last couple of weeks, and I think that ends up continuing in this game. This is one of those games I think you do see a lot of those stunts and twists that you saw kind of against Buffalo as well too, to kind of clog up some of those running lanes that Jalen likes to escape through, as well when pressure or when guys aren't getting open and things like that, where he can extend plays with his legs or whatever. So I think that there are points and times where you can send pressure, but it's just gonna have to be at a point where it's timely and it's needed. Third and longs, of course, I think you can do that as well, especially if you can get home very quickly. But as we all know, they got the playmakers on that side to be able to make some plays down the field. You just have to limit some of those opportunities. I think if they do that, it should be fine. But I think this game again comes down to how well this front four ends up playing. And last week they went out, and like I said, they proved it. That they could create pressure, even though they only ended up with one sack or whatever. There were points in times where Josh Allen was constantly under duress and having to scramble and make plays with his legs or running into guys, at points in times where they were able to contain him. So I think the game plan is kind of the same this week too. Just be able to contain some of those running lanes that Jalen likes to escape out of, but also be able to get pressure with your front four and allow your guys on your back end to do their job and cover up these receivers.
And from a talent standpoint, obviously the Eagles have playmakers everywhere, to DMac's point. But from a quarterback standpoint, just being honest, when you're playing guys like Lamar Jackson and Joe Burrow and obviously Josh Allen and Jalen Hurts, as far as from an arm talent standpoint, Jalen Hurts is at the bottom of that list. Coming into a game, obviously, I was scared to death. DG knows every time we play Josh Allen just because he can make every crazy throw you can think of. Yeah. So as far as arm talent in the league, it's probably him and Pat are probably the top two guys. So when you have that guy on the field, it's just an X factor because you don't know. Even on the play when we got the stop on 4th and 5, he still made the throw. If Jalen Hurts is in that position, I think if we get him on those third and longs, those plays turn into sacks. I don't think he has the arm talent to beat you for an entire game. He has the guys to get open. Like A.J. Brown's a monster. He's going to make his plays, but obviously Trent McDuffie's ready for the moment. Obviously he has film on him. He knows how to critique himself, and he's going to make his plays. There's no shutting those guys out. But I think more often times than not, to DMac's point, if you force Jalen Hurts to have to make that throw, especially when if we get a lead and they're playing from behind, I don't think that's a position that the Eagles want to be in, respectfully.
And that's no disrespect to Jalen Hurts, bro.
He's a great player. It's just watching the film 2 years ago, to DMac's point, he hasn't had a game like that since. That was 2 years ago. Every
player in this league has some kind of flaw, something that they don't do well.
Everybody has a weakness.
It is what it is. Not to say that Jalen Hurts is ass or that he can't play or that anything like that. But there are different things that different quarterbacks can do in this league, And to say that Josh Allen is better, I don't think is a bad statement in my opinion.
Not a question.
But it is what it is. If it offends you, then wear the shoe.
I mean, you said it right, DJ. It's a similar point. When you're looking at the matchup, the Bills have a great offensive line. They play like that all year. Multiple guys that were all pro bowlers that blocked well for Josh Allen, gave him plenty of time. He had plenty of weapons to throw the ball to. A running back that got in the end zone a lot. that made plays in the passing game and in the run game. So it's a very similar matchup, but maybe some upgrades here in certain positions. But overall, the scheme is the same. Keep guys in the pocket. Don't try to be a hero. You may not get a sack all the time, but if you get an incompletion or a throwaway, that's a win. So nothing really too much of the game plan truly changes outside of like the early downs, which you have to stop the run in general. But from an overall game standpoint, it's the same. Force has got to have to beat you from the pocket and try to force them into making a mistake.
Yeah, look, and there's a few, principles as far as Jalen Hurts are concerned. Certainly the one about putting him under pressure is a major one. The other one being the longer that he holds the ball, the worse things happen.
Mistake. Exactly.
And we talked about this kind of last 2 weeks ago, different with Josh Allen, where, longer that he holds the ball, he's usually creating more plays. Same thing, obviously, with Patrick Mahomes. Jalen Hurts does not necessarily have that ability. If he's holding the ball and he's scrambling outside the pocket and trying to throw on the move, generally bad things happen in those circumstances. And the other thing about it that I did want to show, the Eagles have faced 8 3rd and 7 pluses, throughout these entire playoffs, only 8 of them. They've only converted 2 of them, and both the conversions came to Saquon Barkley and Dallas Goedert. I'm going to end up showing them. They technically got the first round on a third one, but that was because of the Saquon Barkley roughing call. That he got hit a little bit late out of bounds. But this is one of the first ones, and he's going to hit Saquon Barkley on this one here, just trying to get the ball out and kind of allowing him to get it done. And this is about, again, rallying and tackling, and they don't end up doing that here on this play specifically. They do a good job initially as far as zoning it up, making sure, but they don't do a great job at rallying. And this is, part of kind of team speed and guys being able to not over pursue. And that's exactly what the linebacker 56 ends up doing there. It just, completely misses Saquon Barkley with a chance to stop him short of the first down as well. Again, comes down to being able to tackle. And that's an aspect where he's not necessarily doing the full drop back, trying to diagnose the defense and get after it. In that case, Jalen Hurts is just dumping it off to Saquon Barkley, allowing him to do it. And again, to your point, facing the Joe Burrows, the Josh Allens, the Lamar Jacksons of the world, those guys are going to create plays with their ability. Jalen Hurts is more so going to allow the guys around him to be able to create those plays for him and then get it done. And here, again, just a really, really nice drop back throw to Dallas Goedert, and he's going to be able to create some yards after the catch as well. But I do want to point out, Commanders aren't able to get any pressure here on Jalen Hurts. He feels like he's comfortable and in rhythm, and obviously is able to hit Dallas Goedert here. And they're able to convert. So those are the only two. Yeah, those are the only two. And I did want to specifically point out that one to Dallas Goedert because, hey, Dallas Goedert is going to be a safety blanket of sorts, and we know how good A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith are, and they're going to bring their own unique challenges. But Dallas Goedert in the middle of the field is going to be a massive aspect of this. We saw him make some really good plays in the Super Bowl versus us 2 years ago. Jalen Hurts is going to look for him occasionally on those plays, and you have to account for him in the middle of the field. I thought that the Chiefs did a solid job versus the Bills tight ends. You're going to need another effort like that in this game specifically. For those, if you do your job on the early downs and get them into those disadvantageous situations as well. So my question is, it comes down to this, and it kind of piggybacks off what I asked as far as the pressure is concerned. Who do you think blinks first? Like, do you think that the Chiefs defensive line can create enough pressure without sending too many extra guys that leaves them exposed? Or do you think that they're going to end up having to send those extra guys before we can get pressure on Jalen Hurts and try and force the issue from that perspective?
I mean, the way this D-line's been playing, guys been winning their one-on-one matchups. I think we were most concerned about those guys coming into like the Bills game the first time we played them. How are we going to win when you get your one-on-one matchup? Because they weren't doing that coming into that game. This is a completely different group that we've seen since that moment in October. So I think Philly blinks first naturally, just because I think we've done a great job of, like DG said, staying on time, staying on target, guys being disciplined, setting the edge has been huge for us. We've been an amazing tackling team, especially in our secondary all year. Especially even more so when we're getting guys back healthy. I think anytime you give Spags 2 weeks to prepare for any run game, I think he's a master, and he's shown that he's just on a different level when it comes to stopping what you do best and forcing you to play left-handed. And I think he comes into this game and does that and not let Saquon take big plays. And I think, like I said earlier to my point, I think it's going to be a lot of under fronts this week, DMac, for real. I think it's going to be a lot of 5 down, some bare fronts, and force like Jalen Hurts, you're going to have to beat me for a whole game. If you get 30-plus pass attempts and you go out there and throw for 300 yards again, DG, I'll shake his hand and say good game. I don't see that's how they win the game this week, honestly. I think we stop the run early, like we've done, and force them to have to throw the ball downfield and try to force Jalen into a mistake.
We haven't seen a whole lot of those creative fronts so far this postseason,
Exactly.
by the way. So.
And this be the game to pull it out. So.
Yeah, I think Spags is gonna go deep in the bag for this one. It's a chance and opportunity for you pretty much to essentially empty the clip. So bring everything you got, man.
Just like we saw the offense bring out some stuff we never seen, defense can do the same thing this week.
For sure. And like I said, this front four the last couple of weeks, especially through these playoffs, I think they've played a lot better. I think they've been able to create a lot more pressure between the four of them. Obviously, when Chris Jones, Charles Omenihu, and George Karlaftis have all been on the field at the same time, they've been wreaking havoc. I think that just is due in part to the versatility of all those guys. Being able to put Mike Dana in over a guard, being able to put George Karlaftis in over a guard, Charles Omenihu over a guard, and getting a mismatch one-on-one somewhere, or creating those double teams inside that gives a mismatch to a Chris Jones on the outside. I don't think there's a tackle in this league that can block him one-on-one. That maybe beats me a little bit cocky, whatever, but I've just seen it time and time again. When Chris gets his one-on-one matchup, he typically wins. So I expect to see that early on. I think if who blinks first, I mean, I guess it'd be the biased answer for me to say it would be them, but I think that they can do some things to you, especially explosively down the field. They can make you take a second look or whatever, especially if Saquon is able to break one or AJ is able to get behind you or whatever. But I just think that Spags is going to come into this game trying to limit those explosive plays and really try to make them go down the field, march down the field methodically, and play the long game.
This is a big flea flicker week, DG. Flea flicker. Sorry, I expect to see that play very, very early. What you just said, they're going to take a shot. It's probably going to be a Saquon flea flicker type play.
Yeah, and you got to be prepared for things like that. The safeties is for sure. Jaden Hicks, Brian Cook. Yeah, keep your eyes, in that backfield. Don't make sure, nothing is getting behind you or anything like that. I think you see Spags and them continuously play a lot of too high men to contain a lot of those explosive plays down the field. And they just gotta, be disciplined. That's what this game is essentially gonna come down to, being disciplined.
Yeah, especially on the Chiefs defensive end. I don't think you're gonna see anything extremely exotic. I know you mentioned the possibility for a flea flicker, but there's nothing extremely exotic about the Eagles offense. It's about trying to dominate you at the line of scrimmage and have their run game keep them on track, and allow their run game to really do the heavy lifting and only have their pass game be a supplemental aspect of it. So being able to stay disciplined, certainly to allow Jalen Hurts not to run the ball on a consistent basis and get those wide gaps that we've seen throughout the playoffs is a big piece of it. But making sure that you're rallying and tackling to Saquon Barkley first and foremost throughout the run game and allowing that to fuel what hopefully will put them behind the six, and then do what you do versus their pass game. And I like that matchup, even as good as A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith are from that standpoint too.
When you said earlier, DMac, Jalen Hurts holding on to the ball, I think obviously on that 4th and 5 play when we got the stop versus the Bills, double A gaps were covered. I expect to see Spags to kind of lean into that this week. Because like we said, invite the action at the middle field to be open. In that second hitch of him just pumping and thinking the throw is there and holding on to the ball, that's usually when Jalen makes mistakes. So I think covering up double A gap blitzes and showing looks of guys dropping and guys are coming, I think that's going to be a big aggressive thing for us this week.
Yeah, there are certain things that you can't get away with certain quarterbacks against, and it's very rare that you're going to fool a Josh Allen, a Joe Burrow, or Lamar Jackson, even really C.J. Stroud. But you did do it to him a few times as you got down the stretch of that with those disguised coverages. This is another quarterback that you can try and get some of those things and bad looks and trying to get those second guesses that are important. And it may not end up resulting in a turnover, but if it does have the opportunity to, you have to secure it. Obviously, we got
tips and overdose
in the Super Bowl in 2022, But any chance that Jalen Hurts is going to give you to have to take away the football, you have to. Possessions are going to be absolute golden in this game. And if you can fool him into making a mistake, you have to make sure that he pays for that mistake in that case too. So flipping over, and this is kind of goes into a little bit of a who blinks first type of aspect too. Eagles defensive line versus Chiefs offensive line. Obviously, a big storyline throughout the entirety of this playoffs is the Chiefs offensive line, specifically the left side of this line. Joe Tooney has really done a really good job at the left tackle position. Played well versus the Texans, who have elite defensive edges. Played very good versus the Bills, who have solid edges. Josh Sweat, Nolan Smith, two really good players, but two guys that I think are more so towards the Bills edges than necessarily Houston, Texas edges. Major piece of this is the interior defensive line. The Eagles are deep, obviously headlined by Jalen Carter, who's an elite defensive tackle. There's no two ways about it. Jordan Smith next to him, Mora Jomo that they like to put in there as well. Milton Williams on top of that. Major piece of this is Jalen Carter likes to line up specifically over the right guard. Obviously, that's Trey Smith's side. How the Chiefs choose to handle specifically on passing downs, being able to deal with this defensive line is going to be massive. So two questions I kind of have for you guys. First and foremost, as far as passing downs are concerned, assuming that they stick with that alignment, are you sending Creed to help out on Jalen Carter along with Trey Smith? Or are you sending Creed to help out Mike Caliendo versus whoever the other interior defensive lineman is as far as the Eagles are concerned, primarily Milton Williams? Second question is, either one of these edges in this specific matchup really give you some pause and some cause from Chris Herman as well from a pass protection standpoint?
On obvious passing downs, or did you?
Nah, you good. You good. Go ahead.
On obvious passing downs, I would probably lean Creed more towards Caliendo's side. I think Trey Smith has kind of seen a lot of elite D tackles in his day. And then obviously during when his run play downs, I think Trey Smith is built for the moment. He can kind of win his matchup. He's going to have to earn his money. He's a guy that's definitely a guy that wants to get paid this summer, and rightfully so. But I think obviously his strength is run blocking, so I think he could win his one-on-one matchup. So in a pass blocking scenario, I would probably have Creed. Obviously, he's going to have to play both sides. Obviously, you can't just keep doing the same thing over and over again. But I would expect a little more Liz calls this week, just because Caliendo is going against a guy like Jordan Davis who can dominate a game as well. So I would probably lean towards that and basically just kind of feel it out and see how Trey Smith is playing. If he's handling his matchup very well from the beginning and he's not feeling overwhelmed in any way, then you don't need Creed to shift over. But if he obviously has plays where Jalen Carter takes over at times, and if it's a longer developing play, then you obviously want to go where your matchup is probably not least favorable. So just kind of play it by ear. But I think run downs definitely let Trey go one-on-one, and pass downs probably give Caliendo a little more help for sure.
Yeah, I think the emphasis is going to be to probably send help more to Caliendo's side. I think the Eagles are probably going to look at that as probably the weakness. This offensive line, Trey Smith, in my opinion, like CJ said, is going to have to earn his money in this game. It's mano-a-mano, one-on-one is what you ask for. These are the games that where you step up and do what you have to do. I know there are points in times Jalen Carter is like you said, an elite guy in this league, man. That kid is a monster. It's definitely hard to stop, but this is one of those times where your technique, your will and determination has to come into play for Trey Smith. There are going to be points in times where you're going to be left on an island alone, and you got to do your job. Take care of it, do it the best you can. But I think there will be points in times too where Pat can kind of create. They're going to get some pressure at points, but Pat can kind of step up in the pocket or create with his legs and get out on the perimeter and try to see what he can do as well. So Pat has to have that awareness as well too, to know that pocket's collapsing or things of that nature. That it's time to make some magic with the legs or even considering just making the safe play and throwing the ball away. It's not a time. Keep saying it. Not a time to be a hero or anything like that. Just do the right thing.
And obviously, like we said, their edges really aren't as dominant as guys we've seen in the past. So I think this is obviously we haven't really seen a lot of heavy screen games from Andy. I think we see a big screen game from Andy this week and get a lot of their edges on islands and kind of get their eyes and see if they're not keeping their eyes on their luggage especially on early downs when they love to rush and get guys up the field and try to get behind them and sneak for a big play downfield, which will set you up down later on in the game for bigger plays via play action. So I think we could definitely beat them on the edge. We have so much speed available to us, like similar to last year. You have Worthy, who's been killing us as far as the edge when we do our jet sweep motions. Hollywood can still make his plays as well. So you just have so many things available to you as far as getting on the edge and stretching this defense out horizontally along with vertically. So obviously I think we have to dominate in the run game first and foremost. But overall, if you set the tone up front and keep yourself kind of similar to the Eagles on the other side of the ball, if we keep ourselves in second, medium, and third down, this has been the best third down offense in the league statistically all year. So if we get to that point, and even more so, you get to the red zone, this team knows how to finish. And I think you have all these available weapons, all three of your tight ends, all five receivers, all three running backs. I think Andy's going to have open up the playbook and go deep into it. But there's nothing in the playbook that you're limited to compared to what we were saying last year. So screen game's available, stretch game is available, deep shots, obviously play action, running gap, running power. There's nothing that's not available to you this week. But it all starts up front. If you block number 98, and then it gives you a better chance to go out there and put up points.
I think against prolific pass rushers that we've seen, normally that the Chiefs have done a thing where they allow what they do best to sometimes be their weakness.
Mm-hmm. Run upfield, yep.
Run upfield, over pursuing sometimes, trying to bend that corner, make that arc or whatever. I know that's something that Nolan Smith is really, really good at, especially with his speed off the line. It can be very dangerous, but I think that that's something that they can also use against him. Throwing sometimes allowing him to come unblocked and throwing it to the vacated area that he's not in. Can be beneficial for the Chiefs. So I think that they'll have a plan for both of those guys. Much respect to both of them. I think they're both great players, but at the same time, I do think they have seen the best edge rush duo that they have seen in this playoffs in Danielle Hunter and Will Anderson Jr. I think that was probably going to be arguably their most toughest challenge as far as from the edges. No disrespect to Josh Sweat or Nolan Smith or anything like that, but I just think that matchup is something that the Chiefs can learn from, take into this game, and apply it to the game.
Absolutely.
Yeah, look, and specifically, I'm concerned for this matchup because I do truly feel like on both sides of the ball, this is going to come down to which team can create that interior pressure, specifically with four, and kind of make the other offense operate in a little bit of uncomfortable manner. Obviously, Chris Jones is the major chess piece for us on the defense side, but Jalen Carter is a game wrecker, and he just has been the entirety of the season. He certainly developed into one in his young career. So if he sticks with Trey Smith, it's kind of going to be hey, you're going to have to earn that free agency money in this game, Trey Smith. And I think that you do send that extra help to Mike Caliendo. Now, if he goes to Mike Caliendo's side in that case, you end up just, helping out Mike Caliendo by default in that aspect too. But I'm going to be interested to see how much Vic Fangio tries to mess with the front, tries to mess with protections. Again, this is a team that does not want to blitz. This is a team that doesn't really want to get all that exotic. They kind of want to play the coverages that they're really good at. Limit, again, yards after the catch, squeeze the space short. And I think, again, as we get into the passing game matchup, you got to attack the intermediate areas of the field. And if you're going to do that, you do have to be stout up front. Can't allow quick pressure in that aspect too. So everybody's got to be on their cues. Make sure that in the rare case that they do decide to blitz, they have it picked up. But certainly the challenge that this front four can provide, because Nolan Smith and Josh Sweat, I think, are underrated players on the edge, even if I think they're a little bit more good than great type of guys. Still, this is a front for the Eagles that can present a lot of problems in that aspect. And if it's him versus Jalen Carter, if it's Trey Smith versus Jalen Carter one-on-one, then it's going to be an earn your free agency dollars type of game, to say the least, from that standpoint. Chiefs run game versus the Eagles defense. Again, this Eagles defense has been pretty good against the run the entirety of the year. I think Nolan Smith specifically is a guy here I like to mention because he's played well above his steez from his ability to play physical on the edge specifically. They obviously lost Nakobe Dean playing alongside Zach Bond, that played very well from that linebacker position. They're down to Owen Burks, who had a really good NFC Championship game, but it's going to be put to a different challenge here, specifically with some heavy personnel sets. So How do you guys feel about the Chiefs' run game versus this Eagles defense, and honoring the ability to stay balanced for this offense, and how important that is for this team going into this game?
I think it's something that Andy and them will probably try to establish early on, just so that they kind of can open up the middle of the field, get some of those linebackers starting to kind of start coming down a little bit, some of those safeties to kind of start coming down a little bit. But yeah, I think that um, for me, the main part I think would be getting Kareem Hunt going in this game. I think I seen a stat where I think the Eagles are eighth highest in missed tackles in the league or something like that. So I think that there are points in times where they can get maybe a little bit undisciplined, tackling in space, things of the nature. I'm not correct. If I'm not correct on that stat, I would gladly be corrected. But I think that there are points in times where there are opportunities for Kareem Hunt to kind of break some tackles and get through the line. So you just got to be stout up front, establish the run early on, get those guys going.
No, I agree. I think it's always about dominating up front, moving guys off the ball. And Jalen Carter is obviously one of the better D tackles in the league, to DMac's point. But the best thing you can do with a D tackle is obviously force him with his leverage. So like to DG said earlier, if a guy loves to run upfield, that's when you hit him with wham blocks. And that's why I love this week for us that we can do a lot of power run game, whether it be running traditional power, running traps, or gap schemes. It can kind of use that aggressiveness of Jalen Carter against him. Because the minute he steps upfield, he gets hit in his ear hole. Guys slam out the way. Maybe he's not coming on. He doesn't shoot off the ball as hard as he was to play before. So a lot of pressure is going to be put on their linebackers, obviously. That's the weakness of their defense. Obviously, they improved that corner from last time we seen them. It was obviously Darius Slay on one side, but it was James Bradbury. Now it's Quinyon Mitchell. The young guys were playing really good football. They improved their safety room, but the guys are still young. A lot of rookies back there playing, so this is their first time playing in big moments like Cooper DeJean. So you want to take advantage of that youthness, then guys haven't been in these moments before. So I think from a linebacker standpoint, I think we have the advantage because we have so many guys that can win in the middle of the field, whether it be Travis Kelce, whether it be Noah Gray and 12 personnel. Obviously, we've seen what D-Hop and Hollywood can do as well. So I think from an offensive standpoint, we do have the advantage, but it all starts up front. If you can't run the football, none of that really matters. This is a group they don't give up too many big plays. They kind of keep their safeties back, and they kind of let their front seven do a lot of the work for them. So I think if we can run the ball early, establish Kareem, Pacheco's going to have an impact on this game. I know we've been saying Kareem is RB1, and rightfully so. He's earned that right. But some of those explosive plays, Kareem just doesn't have the speed and get up to do. So Pacheco's going to have to come in the game and give us some juice. And whether it be a 15-yard run or a 20-yard run here, he's going to have to do something to explosive to make him respected. And obviously those guys working in tandem, 1-1 will help them keep each other fresh, but then give the defense a different look when either guys are in the game for sure. So I think it always starts with starting to run, keeping guys off balance, but we have to use the middle of the field and attack, and that's where we make most of our money. And I think we can do that with their lack of linebacker coverage for sure.
Yeah, and to your point, the Eagles are bottom 5 as far as yards after contact per attempt allowed. Again, to speak to some of those missed tackles that they've had from that standpoint. They're about middle of the pack. They're about middle of the pack as far as success rate is concerned. Really good as far as EPA per rush is concerned. Again, not allowing a lot of explosives, but there are opportunities to be able to, quote unquote, fall forward and making sure that you're having a consistent ability to stay ahead of the sticks as well. And we know it's not going to be a lot of explosive runs with Isaiah Pacheco or Kareem Hunt, but those situational abilities to stay ahead of the sticks and create those long drives, once again, that we've been able to do on a consistent basis, I think are massive. And obviously that's going to be a key piece in trying to attack this team. Some of the aspects that you've seen from a pulling standpoint, again, this team is really good at getting kind of interior penetration as well. So it's going to be fascinating to see how much the Chiefs are going to try and use some of that counter game as well. They're also not easy to push around. It's from a duo perspective, obviously. So you can't necessarily zone them because you don't have the speed to the edge in this running back room. And obviously they have a lot of speed on that side. You're going to have to find some of those creative runs that you did versus the Bills as well. Use some of those concepts to create some of those gaps to be able to get after this run game. And I think there are going to be some opportunities too. And certainly the stats going to bear that out. But it's not going to be as easy as the Bills made it last week, for sure, from that standpoint too. I mean, I don't know if it's going to happen. But Pacheco, obviously, last time that we faced this team, played pretty well, certainly in that first Super Bowl.
Facts.
So we'll see if he's able to kind of have himself a little bit of a bounce back game as well. We've been waiting for him to kind of get back from his injury. It doesn't seem like that may not end up happening.
We just need a couple of explosives from him. Just and it's the middle, not more so the red zone, because I know that's Kareem's job. He's done that role and flourished in it. We call him first down Kareem. But in the middle of the field, we're going to need a couple of big explosive plays. We know we can do it in the pass game, but you got to make us respect in the run game that guys can convert the first down to DMac point, but you want to have a couple of explosive plays in there as well. And I think Pacheco can do that, but he has to be 100% ready to go. So,
yeah, absolutely. No doubt about it. And so kind of talking as far as the Chiefs passing game, and this is, I think that is a massive piece of this as well. There's been a few different kind of stats floating out there as far as how good this team has been, kind of in yards after the catch metrics. Obviously, a lot of places that the Chiefs have taken advantage of. And really, this comes down to one major piece of it. The Eagles are really exceptional as far as the short passing game is concerned. They're number one as far as EPA per pass in the short passing game is allowed is concerned. They're number two as far as deep passes are concerned. That's because that's what Vic Fangio's defense kind of does. It squeezes things short and then also keeps the caps on your deep. As a result, there's one place specifically that they have had some issues. They're middle of the pack as far as intermediate is concerned. You are going to have to throw the ball in intermediate areas of the field, and obviously that includes the pass blocking holding up. But to me, it's not. It's, Xavier Worthy's been good as far as being able to create yards after the catch. Hollywood Brown's been good in that standpoint. Both those guys can still have an impact in the intermediate areas of the field. To me, this is about the trio, or you can include kind of make it a quad from this standpoint, especially given how well he played in the Buffalo Bills game. But this is about the two tight ends, Noah Gray and Travis Kelce showing up. It's about DeAndre Hopkins and Juju. They have to be able to hurt the Philadelphia Eagles on a consistent basis in the middle of the field and the intermediate area of the field. If you could do that, then you have a shot. In Vic Fangio's cover three schemes, there are some opportunities for some sails, some corners to the outside, and that's really where Xavier Worthy and Hollywood Brown can kind of thrive. Crossers, deep areas, deep crossers specifically, also some opportunities to get them in that standpoint. The speed of Xavier Worthy and Hollywood Brown can be a factor there. That is the area of the field for me for this Chiefs passing game that has to be stout. They have the personnel to do so. Andy Reid can certainly design it. They can get the pass blocking, in my opinion, to do so. We know Patrick Mahomes can deliver it. It's just about the execution as well. How do you guys feel about the Chiefs passing game being able to create the space in the middle of the field specifically to be able to get after this Eagles defense?
Boy, they've been saving DeAndre Hopkins for this moment right here.
If there's ever a game where
D-Hop has to go out on his shield, this is the game. I think you're right. This is a big Juju Smith-Schuster, DeAndre Hopkins, Travis Kelce, and Noah Gray kind of game. Those guys have to be able to exploit the middle of the field. I think that Travis has definitely been able to prove that. D-Hop has definitely been able to prove that as well too. But I don't know if the Eagles know how well Noah Gray has played this year in the role that he's kind of been in, and I think that's something that the Chiefs can obviously sneak into this game plan. We know obviously Fangio is going to try to have some kind of plan for both of those guys, D-Hop and Travis Kelce. So I think Noah Gray has to end up being the guy that makes some of these plays over the middle of the field and kind of get them out of some of those looks early on. And if they can do that, I think that you got some chances and some opportunities to get some of your more developing crossers, things of that nature, getting Xavier Worthy and Hollywood Brown involved into the game plan as well too.
No, I completely agree. It's going to be a big middle of the field week, just like similar to when we talk about the Eagles offense. The middle of the field is where you make your money. I think both teams have really good corners, so the shots are going to be limited. They'll be there to take, and you have to hit them when you can. But overall, the middle of the field is where the game is usually lost or won. And I think we have the guys to do so. And if you're imagining from an Eagles standpoint, they obviously think their corners are better, and they definitely are when you talk about Bradbury and Slay compared to Quinyon Mitchell. And they're more athletic and more speedy in that regard. But I think us, from a receiver standpoint, we're way more equipped to beat any defense. To DG said, I think when you have so many guys that they know their roles and everybody's more comfortable in what they can do, and you can see in the interview that Juju had when he was talking to Peter Schreger, he just said it perfectly. We have every body type you can want in this receiver room. You have your speed guys that can do your deep shots and win some of those sail routes in those corners, to DMac's point with Hollywood and obviously Zay. Then you have some of your more possession guys that can make those tough catches middle of the field with Juju Smith-Schuster and DeAndre Hopkins, who has some of the best hands ever in NFL history. And then you have the Hall of Famer, obviously Travis Kelce and Noah Gray, who's came up time and time again, to DG's point. So anything you need from this receiving core, really pass catching group, they have it in front of you. So I think obviously Pat is super excited for this matchup. I know Andy's going to have so many good things cooked up. And from a betting perspective, if guys just want to jump on these lines early, there's a lot of good numbers that you can grab. DeAndre Hopkins yards, DG, 11.5. That is so disrespectful to a guy, like I said, who has some of the best hands in NFL history. That's literally one play. Juju Smith-Schuster yards, just like last week, 16.5. He got like 30 yards on that one big play he did versus the Bills in the first half. So there's some great – Noah Gray's catches are 1.5. There's so much good value for guys that we know all it takes is one play for them to make a play. And obviously we know everybody's available in the red zone. Everybody's alert because Pat loves to spread the ball around and give every guy a chance to make a play. Obviously, your main guys are going to get the ball as far as like Trav and Zay, but if guys are open, they're going to get a chance to make a play. He'll throw it to them. You saw Justin Watson catch a 2-point conversion, who hasn't had a target in a minute, but he just stayed ready for the moment. So that's things that this offense usually do, and they keep everybody involved, keep everybody on their toes. And when everybody's a threat and everybody's alert, you don't know who to key in from a defensive standpoint. So I'm super excited to see what this offense does. I know they'll have a lot of great opportunities, but I'm way more confident, way more comfortable coming to this game than I was a year ago, just based off the fact we have so many weapons available and everybody's in a natural position, so no one's overexerting themselves for sure.
DG beat me to the punch because I was
I was like, I think DMac saw this clip. But yeah, this if you want to go through DMac and explain.
Yeah, so I was gonna first. Well, we'll do it this way. I had pulled up every single one. I pulled up every single one of the Chiefs intermediate pass completions versus the Miami Dolphins, and I think that's a good way to kind of look at it. Again, this is the last time the Chiefs have faced a Vic Fangio coordinated defense, was last year in the wild card round, specifically versus the Miami Dolphins in this case. And you're going to see kind of a running theme as we kind of go through these things too. And so the first one here is going to be a classic where you're going to get Travis Kelce kind of on that sail route, and Mahomes is going to drive it again. And I'm kind of going to run it through and just let these things talk through it. But again, intermediate area of the field, that means you're going to be throwing against linebackers. You're going to see a lot of end breakers, a lot of stop routes, a lot of tight window throws. And you got to have a certain level of arm talent to be able to drive those throws into those types of gaps to create them on a consistent basis. That's what it's going to be asked from Patrick Mahomes. Patrick Mahomes has to show up and have a Patrick Mahomes level game. Of course, we can rely upon him to do that on a consistent basis, but this is certainly going to be one of those. Oh, did it go away? Oh, it's back. Wait.
Hold on. My bad.
Bring it back.
I'm not used to this.
He said, my first time.
My first time on this side. Back here.
Hold on a second, DG. Let me.
Yeah.
There you go.
My bad.
Yeah. I got you. What I was gonna say. Yeah. So that's what I was trying to emphasize is just making sure tight window throws and being able to get it to the middle of the field there. That's a classic 3-by-1 concept where they have MVS kind of run through, have a short intermediate kind of 3 stop routes to allow Patrick Mahomes to take his pick of who ends up getting open here. And again, it's just, hey, we're going to just put enough stress on the intermediate areas of the field because that's where Vic Fangio's defense can be gotten after, and specifically has lesser athletes, obviously, than you're talking about corners on the outside. And if you're able to do that on a consistent basis, then you're going to have success. You just have to be able to hit those tight window throws and be willing to make those tight window throws, which obviously Patrick Mahomes is going to on a consistent basis as well.
That wind was blowing.
Yeah, it was. It was going
on the money, Pat.
Mahomes
Pat was just out there singing them, John.
I'll spin it in anything.
Right?
I'll spin it in anything.
Hey, there was no floaters around or allowed, I should say, in that win, certainly.
Everything got to be a dot.
It's a look we seen last week.
Yes.
Yep,
Think
full
they'll
house.
use it this
Yep.
week.
They've been doing a lot of movement with Trav, and usually when he's in the backfield, that's usually an indicator he's either going to be a lead blocker or somewhere to dictate coverage. Because I believe on this similar formation, the play he scored over his Buffalo, he's lined up obviously on the outside, the full house, motions out, and then he ends up running like a sail corner type route, and then surprisingly leave him wide open. But because whenever you see 87 middle of the field, he dictates coverage. Everybody runs their coverage based off where he goes. So if he attracts multiple guys, usually someone else is open. And on this play, technically, he could have thrown to MVS. He could just lead them downhill because there's obviously room to make that throw. But when you leave 87 again wide open, it's easy money, man.
And the one thing I wanted to point out here before we get to the next play, Vic Fangio's defense, because it's so zone heavy base, they have very specific rules, and they have rules that they like to stick to, and they do it at a really high level, and they make it very difficult for offenses to move the ball accordingly. But the reality of those rules is that if you have a guy like Travis Kelce who breaks the rules of defenses by not running the traditional route, then you have the opportunity to get after him. And here, they played the flood concept accordingly to what it's supposed to be. The guy gets outside. He's like, all right, I know Travis is trying to get outside the numbers for this. And Travis is like, well, no, I'll just stop right here. I'll catch the ball. Because, again, those are the type of adjustments that are built into the system, specifically between Mahomes and Kelce, but also for the other routes as well. They have sail-sit aspects that are built into it from that standpoint, too. And like you said, this is obviously a formation we saw plenty of. They had Noah Gray and Travis Kelce be offset. Here they had Mecole Hardman in the backfield and Isaiah Pacheco be offset along with Travis Kelce. And that motion out there is just, let's get those indicators pre-snap and be able to attack accordingly.
Obviously, a lot of different personnel with the Dolphins, so the matchup is a little bit different. But at the same time, the concepts and what they like, what Fangio likes to do is obviously on film.
And I expect the Eagles to play a lot more. Obviously, you're going to mix up your looks. You're going to try to give different things to Pat and try to confuse them. And Vic Fangio, if anybody knows him better than anyone, because he's seen him multiple times a year coaching with the Broncos and obviously with the Dolphins, and we played him twice this year as well. So obviously we got a lot of film on him and vice versa. But overall, I think Vic Fangio knows if you play man coverage against a guy like Mahomes, he's going to dice you up. Usually Pat has his better games indoors anyway. Granted, he had a great game here in this frozen tundra. We have a game. I can't believe we went to this. But overall, usually when you give a guy like 15 man
They
looks,
did.
DG did. Yeah, don't. I'm not including DG. Me and DMac were stupid enough to go out there, but legendary moment nonetheless.
I was at home enjoying the warmth.
I was at a family barbecue. That's what he was doing. But no, overall, anytime you give when you like, that's why I'm so confident going to this game, fellas, because we have all the requirements and all the proper body types to win a matchup like this. If he does decide to go man against 15, we know Pat loves man because usually that's his best attribute. He beats it, and obviously he recognizes it with indicators when he obviously moves Kelce or whoever the receiver is in motion. But even more so, if he does decide to go zone, which I think they'll play more because he'll play the long game, try to extend the game, try to maybe force us to make a mistake on a longer drive than giving us man coverage, especially when you have guys like Xavier Worthy or Hollywood Brown. When they have guys who can beat zone, I think this gives us more indication that we can get a lot of first downs. And that's why one of my other props I love is pass completions this week. I think Fangio's going to force him to have longer drives and not give him those man beaters.
Yeah, absolutely. And here you're going to see a little cover one and Noah Gray being able to beat him. And again, this is a piece of it from the standpoint of you're not necessarily going to see a lot of man coverage as well. But this is kind of going back into the hoop links first aspect of it. Throughout the entirety of this game, the Dolphins were really struggling being able to get pressure with 4. And you're going to see another example of this right here where Patrick Mahomes just has all the time in the world to be able to diagnose this. Rashee Rice is going to end up getting open here. And again, I emphasize who is going to be important in this game because Rashee Rice specifically had a great game because of his ability to work in the middle of the field, catch those, tight window throws, and then create after the catch as well. They're going to have to kind of do it by committee to be able to replicate that from the wide receiver perspective. But they continued to hammer away at the Dolphins because they couldn't handle their zone coverage principles being broken on a consistent basis, which then leads to the aspect later on in the game where you get this specific one where if you're able to block up them with 4 and then beat their zone coverage, Vic Fangio doesn't have good answers outside of that. He's just going to get into some very basic blitz looks and hope for the best at that point. You're going to see a very basic cover 0 look in which Rashee Rice is going to beat his man across his face and then end up getting a long gain as a result of it. So Patrick Mahomes and this entire Chiefs offense, if they can force enough of those chunk plays versus, zone coverage, specifically versus the front four, the Philadelphia Eagles, giving them time, then they have the opportunity to make the Eagles get into a very uncomfortable game from that standpoint and have some issues too.
Absolutely.
I agree.
And then I had pulled up kind of I think it was 6 intermediate receptions that the Eagles had given up throughout these playoffs. And you're going to see, again, similar perspective. Here they're going to catch Owen Burks kind of looking in the backfield and getting caught by the eyes. Jaden Reed's going to be able to get over the behind him for that nice dig route and be able to have a nice 15-yard gain again. In breaking routes, being able to manipulate the linebackers with your eyes, those are where you're going to be the places that you can create some hay. And again, Jalen Carter lined up over that right guard. If you're able to block everything up accordingly, then you have an opportunity to be able to get after this defense as well on a consistent basis.
It's going to be a long day for 42.
I think this could be
Andy gonna pick on him.
a spot in the role where Hollywood could really thrive in as well too.
RPO game for sure, right behind the linebackers. Yep.
Yeah, I think that he's kind of proven that he can run these kind of routes, intermediate routes over the middle. He's got a good enough route running tree to be able to do that, and then the speed to get upfield and make those plays a little bit more explosive. So
again, to talk about, I was going to say absolutely Hollywood's going to be a part of it, but again, tight windows to be able to fit this in. I talked about this, I think it was last week on the Spaces, but Oren Burks, 42, Cooper DeJean, 33, and, to a little bit of an extent, I think Nolan Smith are going to be kind of the special players that are going to be pointed out early on in this game that are going to be put to the test. And I think eventually some of the safety group for the Eagles are too, but you're going to see a lot of heavy personnel sets early on, and they're going to put those guys to test and make sure that their eye discipline and ability to stick with these wide receivers over the middle of the field is stout, and wide receivers and tight ends, because that's where Andy Reid is going to want to attack early on as well.
Yeah, sure.
Again, more in breaking routes. Puka from the number 2 position here in the slot, working against Cooper DeJean. Matthew Stafford delivers it on time and on target. That's what you're going to have to see a lot of, those intermediate chunks.
Attack the middle of the field.
The middle of the field is where the money at.
Nice blitz pickup by Kyron Williams here, by the way.
No, absolutely.
Picks up Burks.
Matt's able to stand in. Another no look by Stafford.
Yeah,
here,
that's something.
They have Smith drop out, and again, sorry, I know I cut you off.
No, you good. You good.
This ends up being a simulated disguise pressure rather than necessarily a true blitz, because they only send 4. That leaves Nolan Smith in the middle of the field. They rotate Bond over to the other linebacker spot. Again, Stafford just has to be responsible for beating Smith with his arm talent, and he does.
Dropping Nolan Smith in coverage is a choice.
Hey, look, they are not going to blitz, so they're going to drop Smith or Sweat more often than not Smith. And that's
God bless you, Vic Fangio.
You got to be willing to target him in coverage if you're going to do so.
May God be with you.
May God be with you.
And there's a theme here for the entirety of the quarterbacks in this circumstance as well, which, again, another dot. If you're going to live in this world, and this is why the Eagles are such a great defense, you got to have true arm talent to be able to beat them in the intermediate areas of the field and the middle of the field. You got to have true arm talent to do so. Jordan Love, Matthew Stafford, Jaden Daniels, those are the 3 guys that are able to do so. And obviously, you'll see a consistent theme of making some tight window throws that not a lot of quarterbacks are willing to do. And he's able to do it here. Certainly Diami Brown.
Might have a guy that might have some arm talent. Just maybe.
Yeah.
Maybe. I don't know.
Yeah,
What it's been talked about,
Ain't a lot of quarterbacks that got the balls to deliver this into this window.
That's a dot right there, bro.
And then it's going to take a lot of those to beat this Eagles defense.
He might have a guy. Maybe. He's only won a couple MVPs.
Full clip.
It's only been in this game like 4 or 5 times.
Exactly.
5 times.
Play action. Drop has a dig. Wide open. catch.
Nothing initially open here, and Jay Daniels is going to roll away from the pressure from the left side here, just create enough time, just like I'm going to drift a little bit. Jordan Davis has obviously pushed the right guard back into his lap, or the center, I should say. He's just going to drift a little bit until he gets the first level of the defense moving to the right, and then is able to catch Diami Brown coming back on that end breaker there.
Yeah, I think that's something we could see from Andy and them early on too. It's kind of a moving pocket sometimes for Pat. Just
Absolutely.
get him easy rhythm throws. We've seen them kind of do that a little bit last week against the Bills. Get that pocket moving a little bit. Make some completions like this.
And again, with the benefits of having that arm talent, being willing to move and throw on the move specifically, going against the grain and try and create some of that, easy looks and tunnels and windows specifically for the quarterback to take advantage of is massive from that standpoint. That's how big Mahomes' legs are in the matchup. I think they're more so big from the standpoint of being able to have the pocket manipulation, whether it is true getting outside the pocket and moving the target, or I should say the launch point specifically, but also being able to slightly extend those plays within the pocket, being able to move subtly and being able to move the ball accordingly into those tight windows, more so than those big scrambles, I think is the big thing as well. But we'll see how willing they are to run him, similar to what we saw last week versus the Bills, to kind of create some numbers advantages on key downs. And this is going to be a standard corner route again. And you can see Noah Gray or Travis Kelce run this one, but certainly Zach Ertz was able to have a nice catch there as well. I think there might be one more in the.
Tyler Higbee, when he played that Rams matchup versus the Eagles, 10 catches, 80 yards and a touchdown. Zach Ertz, 11 catches, 90-plus yards. So there's a lot of opportunities for tight ends to have a big day versus defense. Continue to.
And you got another one right here. You're going to have Zach Ertz here. Another screen, in breaker, delivered on time. Beats the safety inside. And it was only a handful of them that they were able to create. And it's not the easiest way to live, to say the least. If you're doing your job and staying on schedule, I don't think that you have to live this way. I think you'll still be able to create some of those short gains eventually. But it is going to be massive that you have the ability to have these intermediate chunks in your game plan versus a Vic Fangio defense. Blocking up versus 4 and eventually making them feel like they have to blitz is going to be massive from that standpoint. And obviously Travis Kelce and Noah Gray are going to be headliners from a tight end perspective. Like I said, Oren Burks, Cooper DeJean, and Nolan Smith are going to be the 3 guys that are massive targets for the Chiefs offense to try and test early on to see if they're doing the right things from that perspective.
I love it. I pray to God they blitz. Please play them guys one-on-one. I'm begging you.
If you do your job early on, I think then you can force them to do so.
Absolutely.
So the only thing I wanted to say, at least when we got to this, and we'll go ahead and get to the X factor from this standpoint, but who's one person that you feel like is a little bit less talked about that you think this could be, a sneaky big Super Bowl for, either performance-wise or just, being able to add this to their resume? Obviously, we've heard about the talk about DeAndre Hopkins, some of these guys being able to step up for the first time in their careers as well. Anybody kind of strike you as far as that's concerned?
Kareem. I think this is such a big spot, big moment for him. Obviously, we all know the journey that his career, NFL career has taken, and now you're at the pinnacle. You've been through the fire, been through the downs and the outs, and now you're at the top. And now it's time to finish, man. I think this is a game where we see a very hungry Kareem Hunt, very determined. Especially if it gets to that point where it's time to go out there and try to put this game on ice. I just think this is a big spot for him. I think he'll be prepared. I think he'll be ready. And that's the person that I'm most excited for this game for. Love DeAndre Hopkins, but to see the story and the journey of what Kareem Hunt has been through, and to get back to this point, I don't think he's gonna let anybody try to regret it.
Absolutely. I agree with that one. Obviously, Charles Omenihu, like we said earlier, a guy that was dominant all last year for us when he came back from suspension. and kind of picked the ball up right where he left off this year when he came back from the injury. So nobody was more adamant and wanted to play in that game last year more than him. And he left his stamp on the Baltimore game, unfortunately, when he left with an injury, leaving the game with another turnover as well. So every time 9-0 steps on the field, he dominates, whether it be in pass rush, whether it be stopping the run, setting the edge, always forcing a way to get his hand on the ball and try to force a turnover. He does it every time he steps on the football field. So I don't think nobody outside of Kareem, like to DG's point, that's been more adamant about getting back to this moment. And now that it's here, he's definitely not going to let this opportunity slip through his fingers for sure. Given he's played in so many big organizations that have played in these games where he was with the Niners and obviously didn't get the opportunity. Then he's with the Houston Texans. Then he got here with us, and unfortunately he got hurt. So this is his big opportunity to be on the biggest stage and go out there and dominate. And usually when the lights are bright, Charles Omenihu shows up. So when you're playing a team like this and you're hearing a lot of chatter about you can't stop Saquon, Saquon's even talking a little bit to the media before they left about good luck and how they're going to stop us. So I think this is a big week for the defensive line group. And if there's anybody you're going to piss off, Joe Cullen and Chris Jones ain't the two to get even more riled up, in my opinion, because the things I've heard about Joe Cullen, y'all think he crazy now. Y'all don't want to see him in the locker room. So I'm super excited for the matchup, especially for the guys up front, because they usually rise to the occasion when their number's called. And I know Charles Omenihu will definitely be a part of that attack for sure.
Yeah, I think that you picked him out very, quickly from that standpoint. I would have gone George Karlaftis. The entirety of the defensive line has to show up. I think it's sneaky for Nick Bolton because this is a massive game for a pending free agent, and they have
your money.
A run game, obviously, on the other side. You saw the impact that he was able to have in the first Super Bowl versus the Eagles. This is going to be a big test for him once again, really in both aspects of when they go to 11 personnel. He's still going to be out there. And obviously, 12 personnel, he's going to be asked to do a lot as well. So Nick Bolton is the sneaky guy for me. The other sneaky guy that I want to mention, that I mentioned earlier because I think it's a massive thing for storylines, is Trey Smith. If they're able to run behind the right side of the line, I think Jawan Taylor has been kind of underrated in the run blocking scheme throughout the entirety of this playoffs. But Trey Smith, we know what he brings to the table as well. If they're able to run behind him, and then he's able to hold up in pass protection one-on-one versus Jalen Carter in some of those times, changes the game for the Chiefs and what they can do from an offensive standpoint. So, in my opinion, the two biggest Chiefs free agents going into this offseason have the opportunity to put their stamp on this team in this historic moment in front of the entire, country and set themselves up for massive paydays. There's nothing. I was to say the contract year is undefeated, as the great Therese Paylor said. This certainly applies in this specific game. I think for these two guys, they have the most to gain specifically by going out there and having themselves a great day. In these matchups, it could be massive from that standpoint. So nothing left but to go ahead and pick the game. You can give X factors. We've obviously talked about a whole mess of people by this point, but give me your game predictions, DG and CJ.
I said it earlier. I'm going to stick with it. Chiefs 24, Eagles 23. Close game, one possession. We've been money in one possession games all year. We thrive in these moments. I definitely love the under. I think the line's been moving. I think early in the week it started off at 49.5 and it's dropped to 48, like DG said earlier. So I think it's going to be a battle fight all the way down to the last minute. Anytime we play this team, it's always a good game. So, yeah, I definitely think it's a close game, but I think the Chiefs find a way to pull it out. 24-23 Chiefs.
Yeah, I think it comes down to the wire for sure. I mean, Pat has already stated it a couple years ago. Got to make it interesting.
We're good for ratings.
We're good for ratings. Got to make it worth your watch. So I do think it comes down to the wire. I'll say Chiefs. 24, Eagles 21. I think it comes down to defense getting a stop or something like that to seal it and bring us home. So yeah, it's my score prediction, man.
All right. Yeah, we kind of gave our X factors earlier. I'm just gonna stick with. I think it'll be Chiefs 27, Eagles 21. I think it'll be once again a really close game. Ultimately, I like what the Chiefs have to go out there and do, specifically from an intermediate passing standpoint. I think that we will have plenty of those concepts drawn up to be able to take advantage of what they can do. I think early on they're going to get after specifically Oren Burks and Cooper DeJean with those heavy personnel sets and put them to the test. being able to run the ball is a masterpiece of this, certainly for Kareem Hunt's standpoint. Defense has a tough task against them, but I truly do believe in what their run defense can present. Gap discipline, being able to tackle on a consistent basis, and being able to be disruptive up front, I think we bring a little bit different of a level than what the Eagles have seen to this point as well. Going to be tough, going to be a close game. Maybe the Eagles go up early, but I have faith in this team being able to complete what is a historic three-peat as well. But yeah, I think your Chiefs are going to be Super Bowl champions come Sunday night, man. Anything else before we go and get out of here, man?
Yeah, I got one thing, man.
Oh, boy.
The blowout talk is insane to me.
Uh-oh.
I've been hearing a lot of that, especially from the Eagles fans' perspective. Look, I understand, and I think I said this before. I understand being confident in your team. You should be. I made it here for a reason. They've been a great team all year. I got mad respect for that team on that side and all those guys. I just don't understand where the blowout talk is coming from. Like, I get it. The Commanders, maybe the moment got a little bit too big for them, turn the ball over 5 times. I would expect you to beat that team like that, especially when the team turns the ball over that many times. They give you so many extra possessions. You got to go ahead and put them away. But I just don't see the Chiefs doing that. Even if there is a world where they lose or whatever, I don't see them losing in that type of fashion. A lot of people for some reason, keep bringing up the Super Bowl 55 loss to the Bucs. I still don't get that argument either, just because the Chiefs went into that game with pretty much a makeshift offensive line. None of those guys had started. You were starting guards and tackles, things of that nature. I don't see how that doesn't play into a factor into people's argument about that. But, if that's what you want to take with you and take off of, go ahead, be my guest. It's not this Chiefs team, just like they've been telling us all week. This is not the same team for them from 2022 or whatever. And I get that. But, it is what it is, man. I can't wait to see what happens on the field on Sunday. I haven't been doing too much talking just because I let the players do that. They let their play do the talking on the field or whatever. But the overconfidence to me is a little bit wild. But, hey, maybe it's just a Philly thing.
It is what it is. It is what it is. Like at this moment.
Go ahead, CJ.
No, I was like, at this moment, I don't think there's really no words left. I don't think you need any motivation. Chris Jones kind of said it best in the franchise episode last week. I don't need to rile y'all boys up. You see the look in their eyes, man. They know what this moment entails and what's required. If you got to talk to get yourself motivated, probably shouldn't even be here. So go out there and do what you're supposed to do. And it's greatness, man. Chris Jones, Trav, been saying it the last 2 weeks, greatness. Legendary. Everything's in front of you and the opportunity's right here. Nobody's had this opportunity but us. Go out there and take it, man. Everything's right in front of you.
Yeah, look, I told you guys, last year, 2 weeks ago now, that the Bills fans, you guys are going to be a footnote in history. I'm sorry to tell you, for the Eagles fans, y'all are going to be too. We faced great teams out of the NFC. We faced them with the Eagles. We faced them with the Niners. We've seen what that looks like, man, and we're prepared for this moment. If you think that it's going to be a blowout, all that means is you telling me that you're scared to get in a close game with this team. And if I was y'all, I'd be scared to be in a close game with this team too, because all they do is win them. So
there's a difference between
on Sunday.
Hope is what you're hoping for. I can live with you saying that. If that's what you say, I hope.
Then you say they're going to.
But going to is that's pretty bold to say. But hey,
these entire playoffs have been about teams getting put in advantage, or I should say, discomforting situations that they aren't necessarily, accustomed to. I don't know if the Eagles are necessarily built to live in that world. What happens if the Eagles' defensive line isn't killing the other offensive line? What happens if the Eagles' offensive line isn't creating massive gaps for their run game and Jalen Hurts has to beat them with an arm? We're going to find out. And if it's a close game, it may not go the way that you expect it to. So looking forward to it. And it's going to be a lot of fun. Pay attention to Kingdom Cast coming up here on Thursday. I'll have my Red Friday space over at DMac Wake 316. Be on the lookout. Air at AM, PM as well, Wednesday as well. So looking forward to it, baby. We'll be back here next week to recap the Super Bowl and, probably celebrate and take a nice look ahead to the offseason as well, man. Anything else before you get out of here, brothers?
Nah, man, go be legendary, guys.
It's an honor.
60
It's an honor
minutes,
to be
bro.
here.
60 minutes.
Go do your job, man. We know what time it is. Job's not finished.
I'm not done.
Job's not finished, man.
One more to finish the job. Absolutely. Chance
Oh.
to make history.
Underdog.
Shout out Underdog.
Yes.
Yes.
We will have our Tell the Truth trifecta, and we will be putting that out. Make sure that you use code TRUTH3 or KingdomCast to sign up for a $100 deposit match. They're going to be big game specials that will be coming out on Underdog Fantasy throughout. Make sure you pay attention. Plenty of promos. Make sure you guys go out there and get ready for it, man. Looking forward to it. So,
and make sure y'all go to Wings and Things and get y'all some wings for the game.
Mm-hmm. That too. And tell them Kingdom Cast sent you.
Yeah, use the promo code KingdomCast. Now I'm playing.
And when you leave, give me a 6-piece lemon pepper, all flats,
honey spicy with the pink lemonade.
Well, yeah. Give me a strawberry.
And ranch.
Yeah. I want an extra roll too.
Yeah, I want a sauce. As a matter of fact, tell them country put you in there. It'll get you right.
This is why we need promo schedules. I love you guys. But yes, make sure you check it out, man. We'll be back next week to talk about it. Peace out. Go Chiefs. Go be historic, man.
Yes, man. Yes, sir.